you can create this retro typography effect using Adobe Illustrator. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a new document, and I'm going to set the dimensions to 1280 by 1280 pixels and go ahead and click create. And what I want to do is just set up our document so that we're all working with a similar view. We're going to want to go to view, and we want to deselect snap to pixel. Let me go back to view. Make sure snap to point is the only thing you have selected here. If anything else is selected, go ahead and deselect that. And from the window, we're going to want align, color, and transparency all selected. And I'm just going to go to File and set my document color mode to RGB. Yours probably is set that way by default, but I have my default set to CMYK. But it really doesn't matter. Either one will work just as well. So the first thing we're going to do is create some text. So I'm going to grab the text tool, click on the canvas, and I'm going to choose a font. I'm going to choose a font called Montserrat. You can use any sans font you'd like. Any like good, bold, heavyweight sans font should work well, or even a serif font will work well, just as long as it's a heavyweight. I'm going to use Montserrat. It's a free font if you want to look it up and download it. Montserrat, and the weight I'm going to use is bold. And I'm going to change the text here. I'm just going to write a capital letter A for this tutorial like you saw in the thumbnail. But if you'd like to use this for an entire word, you're going to want to type the entire word out now. And once I've done that, I'll grab the select tool, and I'm going to hold Shift and Alt and click and drag one of these corner arrows to scale this up. Maybe a little bit bigger. And what I want to do now is just convert this to a vector object instead of a text object. So to do that, I'll go to Type and Create Outlines. And I'm going to set this to the color I'd like the letter to be. Like if you notice here, it's that letter red on the inside there. I'm going to use that shade of red. So I'll just double click our fill color. I'm going to find a nice shade of red, maybe something like that. Go ahead and click OK. And what I'm going to do is create a duplicate of this. So I'm going to click and drag and then hold Alt to create a duplicate copy. And I'm going to make this one a tan shade, kind of like the background here in the thumbnail. So to do that, I'll double click the fill color again. And I'm going to select a nice tan shade. I'll come down here to the orange area. And maybe I'll go with something like that right there. Go ahead and click OK. And what I want to do now is give that an outline, otherwise known as a stroke. So to do that, let me click on the stroke color to make that active. And then I'll grab the eyedropper tool. And then I'll hold Shift and click on that area where the color is that I want it to be. And it's going to give the stroke color that same shade. And then I'll go to the drop down up here for the stroke color. Actually, no, I'll go to this drop down for the stroke size, and I'll change that to 16. Now let me go back to the select tool. Let me bring this over here. I'm actually going to right click this and go to Arrange, Send to the Back. And then I'll click and drag over both of those. And in the Align tab, we're going to make sure we have Align to set to Align to Selection. And then I'm just going to center that up on the vertical and horizontal axis like that, so they're nice. They're up against each other like that. And once I have both of those selected, I'm going to hold Shift on the keyboard and click on the red letter A to deselect it. And I'm just going to adjust the thickness of the tan letter A's stroke to my liking. I'm going to make this maybe a little bigger. I'm going to go with something like 18. And we want something like that. Should be pretty good. Yours doesn't have to be specifically 18, just something that looks decent, like that's not too thick, not too small. If anything, I'd like that to be a little thicker. I'll go with 20. That looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is go to Object, Path, Create, Outline, Stroke. And I'm going to hit Control-C on the keyboard to copy that. And then I'll hit Control-V to paste it. And what I want to do with this copy is I want to make this, let me bring the tan back to the fill, let me activate the fill color, double click on that, and I'm going to choose a shade of blue. Maybe something like that. Go ahead and click OK. And I'm going to give this an outline as well. So I'm going to go back to I'm going to activate the stroke color, grab the dropper, hold Shift, click on the letter, the color area, and I'm going to make the thickness of this maybe something like, we'll start out with 20 and we'll see how that, actually, you know what, I'm going to do 40 and we'll see how that looks. Let me go back to the select tool. I'm going to hold Control on the keyboard and grab this bottom left node over here and snap it onto the letter A like that. And then I'm going to right click that and go to Arrange, Send to the Back. And that right there is, I'd say that's looking pretty good. That's what we're going for right now, right there. So what I'm going to do then is go to Object, Path, Outline, Stroke. And that right there is the effect we're looking for. So what I want to do next is duplicate that. So I'm going to hit Control-C on the keyboard to copy that. And then I'll hit Control-V to paste it. And we'll have another copy of this large letter here. And I just want to put this down here to the bottom right of the other letters. Like that. Because this segment right here is going to make up like the, I guess you can call it like the pop-out 3D sort of effect. So I'm going to put this down to the lower right over here. And then I'll right-click that and go to Arrange, Send to the Back. And I just want to connect these corners together. So to zoom in and out, what I'm doing is just holding Alt and rolling up and down the mouse wheel. And to move the page around, you could press down on the space bar and then click and drag. So zoom in on this area right here. I'm going to hit Control, Shift, and A to deselect everything. I'm going to grab the pen tool. And I'm going to snap to this corner right here. And snap to that corner. Come through here, then through here, and then back to the starting point like that. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to close these corners in as well. And again, to move the page around, I'm pressing down the space bar and clicking and dragging the mouse. There we go. Let me zoom back out. Let me go back to the Select tool. I'm going to hold Shift and click all three of those objects we just created. And then hold Shift. And you know what? Once we've done that, I'm just going to right-click that and go to Arrange, Send to the Back. And that's exactly what we're looking for. We can click off of that to deselect everything. And the next step would be to create these this makeshift sort of like, I guess you can call this like a light, like a shining light coming down on the letters, but it's kind of like faked. So to do that, I'm going to grab the rectangle tool. I'm going to click and drag to create a rectangle going over the top of the letter like that. I'm just going to make this green. Or you know what? We're going to have to click on the fill color to activate that, and then we can make it green. And then come up here to this second drop down where it's green and just change that to a red slash. We want the stroke. We want no stroke on this one. And I'll just take the opacity of this and bring this down about in half. And what I want to do is, I want to grab the Select tool, and I'm going to hold Control on the keyboard and grab the rectangle at this corner and snap it to the top left corner of the red letter A like that. And then I'm just going to click and drag this over to the left while holding Shift to lock it onto the horizontal axis. Bring it over there like that. And I'm just going to take this node down here and just make that a little smaller. We want this to be about that thick. I'm going to create a duplicate copy of this by holding Alt and clicking and dragging it. And then I'll hold Control, grab this corner, and snap it onto this bottom corner of the letter A down here, the red letter A. And again, I'll just hold Shift and just move this over to the left. And I'm going to take this one and I'm going to make it smaller. I'm going to take this top node and just click and drag it down like that to make that thinner. We want this to be significantly thinner in height than the original one. And once we've done that, we can hold Shift and click on the other rectangle so we have both green rectangles selected. And we can go to Object, Blend, Make. And that's going to create what's called a blend between the two objects. It's going to create a bunch of different other objects that kind of transitions to the other ones. That kind of like copies off of each other. But we want to edit that. So I'm going to go to Object, Blend, Blend Options. Because as it looks right now, it doesn't look very good. So we want to make this look a little better. The spacing, I'm going to choose Specified Steps. And I'm going to change that to maybe 6. And then we'll check Preview to see how that looks. Okay, that right there looks pretty good. I'd say that's what we're going for. But you could try out different things. You could try out like 8 and then toggle the preview off and on. I don't quite like how that looks. I'm just going to stick with 6 here. Go ahead and click OK. And then finally, we want to go to Object, Blend, and Expand. So we can actually work with that now. And once we've done that, I'm going to hold Shift and click on the red letter A so we have both the green objects and the red letter A selected. And I'm going to come over here to the Pathfinder tab. If you don't have a Pathfinder tab, go to Window and choose Pathfinder. And I'm going to click on this button right here that says -front. Go ahead and click that, and it's going to delete that area from there. And once we've done that, we can click off of the graphic to deselect everything. I'm going to hold Alt and roll down the mouse wheel to zoom out. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give this a little bit of a slant, or I guess you can call it a shear, as you see here in the thumbnail. So I'm going to click and drag over everything. And I want to group it all together by hitting Control-G on the keyboard. And then I want to come over here to the Scale tool and click and hold on that until we get this flyout menu, and we can grab the Shear tool. And with the shear tool, I'm just going to click and drag it up a little bit like that. And just make sure to hold shift so it locks it onto the vertical axis. Oops, I may have to redo that. Okay, there we go. That right there is what I'm looking for. Give it a nice little shear. And the final step would be to add this worn out kind of grunge texture. So to do that, let me go to the select tool. To do that, I'm going to use an image, a raster image. I will have a link to it in the description of the video. Go ahead and download and save that image for you to use. Or if you want, you could just go to the website and right click it and go to copy and then paste it into Illustrator, whatever is easier for you. I have it saved to my hard drive, so I'm just going to use it from my hard drive. I'm going to go to File, Place, and it's this texture over here, Texture 13. And I'm just going to click wherever I want it to be placed. And there's our texture image. I'm going to hold Shift and Alt and scale it down until it's just a little bit bigger than the letter here. Just like that. That right there is a good size in proportion to the letter that we're looking for. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control-C to copy that image. And then I'm going to click back on the letter. And I'm going to come over here to the Transparency tab. And again, if you don't have the Transparency tab visible, go to Window and click Transparency. And then I'm going to click this button that says Make Mask. And the object is going to disappear momentarily, but that's okay. I'm going to click on this black box right here. And I'm going to hit Control-V on the keyboard to paste it in. And now what you could do is take this texture and move it around, because it's now pasted onto the image as a mask. And you could just adjust it to however it looks good. You could even scale it up or down. You can rotate it around a little bit if you'd like. You can distort it. I'm just going to rotate mine around like that. That looks pretty good. Once you're happy with how it looks, you can click back on this box over here with the object in it. And now you'll be able to move around the object and scale it up or down or rotate it or do whatever you'd like with it. And as you can see, we are finished. We have created our retro typography using Adobe Illustrator. So